Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper, and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 1, Episode 11 review of Scorpion. If you missed any of my previous Scorpion reviews, I'll put a link in the description of this video, as well as an annotation behind me on the screen. You can click either of those, and that'll take you right to the playlist that I created that has all of my Scorpion reviews in it. Also, earlier this week, I did a review of Constantine Season 1, Episode 7, which I will link in the description of this video as well. You can check out my thoughts on that series if you're interested in Constantine, a really cool sort of DC Comics type series. I'll also go ahead and link my other reviews, my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reviews, and my Gotham reviews in the description of the video as well. If you're interested in my thoughts on any of those series, I encourage you to check those out. With that being said, Season 1, Episode 11 of Scorpion was called Revenge, and in this episode, the team is tasked with tracking down and stopping a very dangerous and volatile and violent group of criminals led by Javier Acosta. No, actually, not that Javier Acosta, that Javier Acosta. And in the course of their investigation, Sylvester is taken out of commission by an IED that was meant to destroy evidence that these guys leave behind. And so over the course of the episode, the team is balancing stopping these very dangerous criminals and their emotions and the fallout of Sylvester's injuries and what happened to him. And so that's the story of the episode. Let's talk about the characters of this episode, and let's begin with Walter. Walter, as a result of what happens to Sylvester, kind of goes down that rabbit hole that we learned about in previous episodes. He becomes very antisocial. He gets in that fight with Toby, and he focuses very much on refining his skills with these equations that he's working on. And he tries, in the beginning of things, to stay away from people and to work on that equation that he was working on and to vent that way. And it felt to me like he was going down that rabbit hole. And luckily, Paige was able to push him back out and get him on track and working with the case and working with the team. And so that was a nice sort of nod to the continuity of the series and the sort of story and the rules, if you will, that they've built up so far about these geniuses and about how they handle things. And a nice sort of hint that Walter's not 100% there emotionally yet. He's making progress that we've seen over the course of these episodes, but he's also struggling, and we saw that in this episode with him trying to, or not necessarily trying to, but almost going down that rabbit hole out of habit and out of necessity to vent and to recuperate. And aside from that, we saw him and the agent that was originally on the case sort of develop a relationship and sort of a bond over the course of the investigation, and she makes a move on Walter, but Walter, I don't want to say rejects, that's too harsh of a word, and it's actually surprising to me that it was not as harsh of a rejection or as matter of fact as a rejection as I would have expected from Walter. So again, we saw that he's not making progress in terms of the rabbit hole, but in the way that he's dealing with people and in the way that he sort of lets her down easy and makes the right decision in going to go see Sylvester and Paige and all them, but he does so in a way that doesn't necessarily hurt her feelings or is not too matter of fact. We've seen that that's sort of progress in that arena of things. And it's an interesting possibility that woman may come back for future cases or may come back into the story in some way, and Walter may develop a relationship outside of the team and outside of Paige. I think he could do that. I just think the timing was a little bit off, obviously, with Sylvester being injured and all these things going on with Ralph and Paige. The timing there was a little bit off, but those two have a chemistry and they have a bond, I think, that we saw in this episode that would be nice for the show to explore moving forward, and maybe in a next episode or a future episode or a future season. So again, I don't think it's entirely out of the realm of possibility for her to come back. and for Walter to develop relationships outside of the team. Maybe not with her necessarily, but again, we've seen that it's possible for him to develop a relationship outside of the team of geniuses that he's accumulated and outside of Paige. And that would be an interesting turn of things since they've sort of been pitching us this idea of Walter and Paige as a couple. And then we now have Drew back in Paige's life. So obviously Walter is going to have to find a way to deal with that. And the last thing I want to talk about in terms of Walter is at the end of the episode when they catch Javier Acosta. No, not that Javier Acosta. This Javier Acosta. They are on the roof, and Walter hesitates trying to save this guy. And it's interesting to me because Walter's not an emotional person, and up until now we've taken that low EQ to mean that he's not capable of love or of anything along the positive spectrum of emotions. But also, what I think this episode shows us is that goes both ways. He's not necessarily capable of emotions like guilt or revenge or like hate. But we saw that on the roof. We saw him hesitate. Either he hesitated mathematically, where he said, at that angle he would have pulled me over, or whether he hesitated out of spite or hate because that's what they did, because of what they did to Sylvester. So we're seeing that he's developing these emotions, but we're seeing that it's a two-way street. On the one hand, he's developing a higher EQ in terms of his feelings for Paige and his feelings for the team and his love for Ralph. And then on the other hand, he's got these ideas of revenge and guilt and anger towards Javier Acosta. And so that was kind of interesting to take a look at. And it's going to weigh on Walter, I think, over the course of the rest of the season, is that decision and these things that are happening to him and these thought processes that he's having. And it was something I think that was, again, an interesting idea of why did he hesitate? Did he hesitate out of a mathematical sort of pragmatic decision-making, or did he hesitate because he wanted Javier to die? So that's Walter for this episode. Let's talk about Happy very briefly for this episode. I bring Happy up because it was interesting to me to see a role reversal between her and Toby as it relates to what happened to Sylvester. Toby kind of takes that very hard. He and Sylvester have been friends for a very long time, and Toby borderline shuts down in this episode and is almost incapable or ineffective in this episode. And that role reversal of he and Happy takes place when Happy sort of acts as the psychiatrist or the counselor for Toby in this episode. And to see them sort of continue to grow closer, that was nice. And to see what sort of counseling Happy could offer Toby, that was nice. And then the second thing I want to talk about Happy was her reaction to what happened to Sylvester was she likes to hit stuff, she said. And she gets very agitated and very we see that antisocial behavior come out. And going along the lines of what's been happening over the course of the season, the progress that the team is making, that was, again, a step in the backwards direction for Happy. And so I'm interested to see if that has any lasting effects moving forward. The next person I wanted to talk about, because that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about with Happy. So the next person I'd like to talk about, let's talk about Paige. And I think Paige has a very, very, very important role in this episode. Like I said, Toby's pretty much shut down. Happy's getting very agitated. Walter's going down the rabbit hole. And the only person who can really bring them together and keep them on track is Paige. She's able to keep her head above water and to think clearly and to not only do that for herself, but to bring the team together. and to keep them above water, and to keep them thinking clearly and focused on doing the right thing. The team is scattered and confused and agitated, and the agent that Walter gets involved with, she's encouraging them to focus so much on the revenge aspect of it, because she had that whole thing with her partner, and Paige is keeping them on the right track and focusing on justice and bringing these guys to justice and catching these guys for the right reasons and doing that for Sylvester. So to see, again, Paige took charge when Walter went out and got arrested, and now Paige takes charge here in this episode with Sylvester being injured. To see that, I think we've seen Paige, more than anybody, grow and become more assertive and more of a leader, and we've seen her character develop in a very positive way over the course of the season, and I hope we get to see more of that as the season continues. Speaking about Paige's personal life, she and Drew get a little bit closer in this episode, and Drew tries to rekindle things, but again, the timing is a little bit off, and the timing just isn't quite there, and Paige ultimately says, you know what, not now. Obviously, there are things going on that I have to sort out, and ultimately, you guys know my opinion on this. You guys know where I stand on the whole Drew thing. I don't like the guy. I think he's up to no good. I think ultimately he's not going to do what's best for Ralph. But where the story goes is out of my hands, and ultimately what Paige's decision is, I think, again, as I've said, her decision is going to be not necessarily her decision, but Ralph's decision. She's going to go where Ralph goes and do what Ralph does. And that may be a detriment because of how close Ralph is getting to Drew and how much Drew means to Ralph. That might cloud their judgment, and they may make, in my mind, the wrong decision and go ahead and we'll deal with the consequences of that when we cross that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But that's Paige in this episode, and again, a really solid, strong episode for her, and probably this would probably be her standout episode so far. Let's wrap up my characters discussion with Sylvester. Obviously, Sylvester spends most of this episode in the hospital. At the beginning of the episode, he expresses a concern to Walter about, we're a group of geniuses. We're a think tank, and we're doing a lot of things that are dangerous, and people might get hurt, and all this stuff. And obviously, he was right. And over the course of this episode, as he's recuperating, he's getting closer to Megan, closer to Walter's sister Megan. And that was something I talked about in my last review, how I would like to see the two of them continue to get closer. And I'm glad that she's sticking around as a character for the show, because that's going to be very important for Sylvester, to have that person that he can get close to and that he can bounce off of and recuperate with, because he can't go to Walter, he can't go to the team and express these feelings that he's had about being afraid and not feeling safe and so on and so forth. And what I think is very important to notice about Sylvester here is that his arc is probably the most important and the most solid arc out of the show. You see that all the time in literature, in television, in movies, where you break a character down and then you build him back up again, and he's ready, and he's stronger, and he's better. And the show is breaking Sylvester down piece by piece. We saw that in the Bosnia episode when Sylvester wasn't able to go with the team, and he had guilt about that, and he had feelings about that. We saw that in this episode, where now he doesn't feel safe, he doesn't feel secure, he's very vulnerable, and the only one he can turn to is Megan. And we're going to see, I think, over the course of the rest of this season, Sylvester be built up stronger and better and more confident. And that arc is going to be important. And if they get that right, Sylvester is going to be my favorite character of the season, if they get that right. Because that's such an interesting and a very compelling arc to have, where you have this guy who, we know his past was a little bit dark, and he was thinking about, at least it intimated that he was thinking about killing himself, and he's very conflicted and He's very vulnerable and weak, and then at the end of the season, we'll see a confident Sylvester, somebody who is able to carry himself and able to contribute to the team and able to stand up to Walter when Walter's wrong, stuff like that, that I think is going to be important for Sylvester moving forward, not just in this season, but in the rest of the series. So that's Sylvester for the episode, and that's all I kind of wanted to touch on. Talking about the overall story of the episode, I was actually pleasantly surprised with this episode. You see, in a lot of the crime drama, sort of CBS-style shows, like I talked about in my Gotham review, there's this idea that the team or the characters or the main cast aren't really in any danger, because what kind of a show would this be if they just, killed the cast or stuff like that? But in Scorpion, and in this episode and in the Bosnia episode, we're getting that sense of danger. We're getting that sense that these geniuses might be in over their head, and these sort of fantastical adventures that they're going on may be more than they can handle. They may bite off more than they can chew every now and then. And that was really kind of refreshing to see that. To see a show that says that, these guys are geniuses. They're not G.I. Joes. They're not secret agents. They're smart. And that's just about it. And so there's very real danger present in the show for these guys. There's very real danger present in the missions that they're doing. They're a think tank. They fix computers, they fix routers, they fix security systems, and maybe putting them on a Homeland Security task force was a bad idea. Or at least the way that they're doing things now, maybe this is a bad idea. And that question of, are they in over their heads? Did they bite off more than they can chew? Is their motive for being a task force clouding their judgment and putting the team at risk? Is Cabe's sort of quest to redeem himself putting the team at risk unnecessarily? And does Walter see that, or is Walter too concerned with impressing Cabe or making amends with Cabe? And so those are the things that I think make this episode stand out, is that they're not shying away from the fact that these are real people in exceptional situations. And again, I think the question of Paige and Drew, Walter and his relationships, and Sylvester and Megan, these three relationships, and I guess also as well, Happy and Toby, those inter-team relationships were explored and touched on very well over these past couple of episodes, and particularly in this episode, and I want to see where they head out moving forward. So that'll kind of wrap up my thoughts on the episode. Solid, great episode, and again, I tip my hat to the guys over at Scorpion for exploring these themes and exploring the idea again that these guys are in over their heads and that maybe they shouldn't be doing all this cool stuff. It's kind of new, and you don't see that. And so again, great episode. And if you guys enjoyed the episode, if you guys enjoyed the episode, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about the episode, what you thought about everything that I talked about here in the review, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, what your thoughts are on Paige and Drew, Walter and Paige, and particularly, what are your thoughts on Sylvester? I want to know what you guys think about Sylvester. Hit me up on Twitter at the DH Reviews, or talk to me down in the comment section about that. If you want to see more reviews like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and you'll see my reviews as they come out. Again, Constantine, Scorpion, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Gotham are the shows that I review right now, and there are more coming up. If you enjoyed this review, again, please leave a like. That helps me out a lot. Thumbs up the video. It spreads the video out, and it helps me out a lot. Share this video on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, wherever you got to share the video, so that we can grow the channel. And with all that said, that's kind of my spiel. So the things you can expect moving forward for this week. Again, I have my Constantine review on Monday, and then my Scorpion review here on Tuesday. And tomorrow I will be reviewing the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode that happened last week. Not the one that happened this week, the one that happened last week. I'll be reviewing that tomorrow, Wednesday. And then on Saturday, December 13th, at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live streaming my review of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. winter finale. I won't be watching it on, I guess it comes on tonight. I won't be watching it tonight. I'll be watching it on Saturday live and giving my thoughts on it live with you guys like I did with my Constantine review. So spread the word about that. We're gonna be talking about the future of the channel. I've got a few things planned for you guys, just some very interesting, again, nothing too major, but some treats that I think you guys will enjoy if you've been keeping up with the channel. And again, we're going to talk about the shows coming up in the future of the channel and stuff like that. And so I hope to see you guys there again, December 13th, Saturday at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with that all being said, I've been Dharma Helper, and this has been DH Reviews, and I will see you guys in the next video.